Hello YouTube, Caboose here with the second installment of the Beginner's Guide to Airsoft. So, in the first video we covered game modes, what are the different kind of game modes, and what Airsoft is. So, today we're going to look at gear and one example of equipment. So, with gear, as a beginning Airsofter, that's always going to be the biggest question. What do I get? Do I need a upper rig? Do I need a belt rig? What do I need? And the answer is actually quite simple. What you need, just for the sake of playing Airsoft, is eye protection, depending on the field, mouth protection. Unless you're under the age of 18, then you have to get a full face mask that you would see paintballers wear. And in some areas, even ear protection. So, but yeah, eye protection though, that is the most crucial thing. You can't just go out and go get shooting glasses. They have to be full seal goggles or a full seal face mask. I would say if you're 18 or under, go out and buy the mask that I have in the description down here somewhere. That's probably going to be your best bet if you want to be very serious at playing Airsoft and want to be able to get down the sights on most of the guns and that kind of thing. So, but yeah. Now, most people, when they try to join in the Airsoft, they think, oh, I need to have a full rig, upper rig, and a belt rig, and a pistol, and everything like that. Honestly, you don't. To play Airsoft, you need eye and face protection, a gun that works, and BBs, and a good set of BBs. So, I'd say the best way to define whether or not what equipment you need is to take a look at the field, what kind of field you're playing in, what are you going to use in the term of guns, and from your first experience from playing with a rental. That's the best ways to get things done. Oh, sorry about that. Ringing in the ears. Anyway, but yeah, gear-wise, you have 3 different ways to have a upper rig. You have something that's called a chest rig, which measures, I'd say, about 6 inches or so tall, and either come with built-in pouches for magazines, or has something called MOLLE, which I forgot what the abbreviation stands for, but basically it's a really good mounting system. So, chest rig, it's very simple, very lightweight, very good if you're running out in the desert. But what else was I going to say? Chest rigs, they can run anywhere between $15 up to $50. So chest rig is probably one of the cheapest ways if you're going to run a something that's called a mid-cap magazine, which we'll talk about later. Then you have cross-draw vests, which is what you see here, but this is a different version. This one has 6 different magazine pouches for the M4/M16 variant gun. And these are generally what pretty much everybody starts out with, is a cross-draw vest. Normally, they come with a pistol holster that you would mount, right here, and then you would undo the buckle, pull the pistol out, ready to go. And then instead of having 2 storage pouches, you would have a storage pouch with possibly shotgun shell holsters and pistol mag holsters here. But yeah. And then you have plate carriers, which is basically what the military uses. Plate carriers hold actual plates, and by plates I mean armor protection type plates, armor plates. And you can get real plates, which personally I don't recommend because that'll weigh you down. You can get sappy plates, which are plastic, and that would probably be a lot better. So yeah, and that kind of thing. And then you, going down, you have belt rigs, which basically it's just a giant belt that you can attach storage pouches on, magazine pouches. You can mount pistol holsters to it, regardless if it's a drop leg, which is, as the name implies, it's on your leg, or more of a hip style. So, but yeah, and that's really it for when it comes to, you know, storage magazine type rigs. Honestly, I would say for the sake of money, I'd say get the was it Griffin Dragon Spine belt system. It comes with 2 double stack M4 mag pouches, which, as the name implies, there's 2 pouches that can hold 2 M4 mags at the same time. And it comes with a dump pouch for you to put magazines if you so wish to choose. Mid caps, which once again we'll go over that later. That costs about $15, and it will cover you quite well with general usage. Blanket here. And then chest rigs are another one I would highly recommend, because Griffin also makes a chest rig for $15, and it's just a really good system. So moving on to equipment, I know I didn't really cover eye protection that much, but I think I went over enough. So, but anyway, going on to equipment, one of which being pistols / guns. Another one can be smoke grenades, and just general things that you would use to actually allow you to play better. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah. So when it comes to airsoft guns, you have 4 different style of airsoft guns. You have spring guns, which is normally what you would end up finding at a Walmart or Dick's Sporting Goods or Sports Authority, something like that. But there are shotguns and sniper rifles that you can buy from official airsoft retailers that are spring and are pretty good, and will generally be on the cheaper end. Then you have electric guns, AEGs, automatic electric gun, if I remember correctly. That's what the abbreviation's for. Those are definitely most common, and being the most common gun amongst electric-based guns are the M4s, which advantages of that, you can go just about anywhere and people will have replacement parts for it. Disadvantages, well, it's pretty hard to be unique with an M4, but that's the price you're going to pay for having such convenience with it. Then you have gas guns. So one example here is this is a gas blowback pistol, and generally most of the rifles are gas blowback. So, but the thing about gas blowback pistols, slide moves back and it actually gives you kick. So gas guns, they will be propelled by mostly magazine fed gas. So you would have the magazine, you put your gas in there, regardless if it's something called green gas, which that's the most recommended because it has, you know, built-in lubrication, that kind of thing. It's just a lot healthier for the gun. Propane with an adapter, that's still good, but not as good. as green gas or CO2, little cartridges. And so I'm going to go on the pros and cons of all four after this. And then we have HPA, high pressure air system, which has been on the rise recently. So basically, if you've seen a paintball gun, you see how there's a tank attached to it, and that's how the gun gets its power. That's what HPA is. Airsoft has integrated to where the tank is more or less on your back with the hose attaching to the gun, and then you have an electronic system to monitor the gun, and then you just fire. So, but anyway, pros and cons of each gun type. Pros of spring guns, aka springers. Cheaper, generally less likely to break because they're just so simple. But cons, they're generally a little bit harder to work with because you're pulling back a spring to make the gun function. So if you're a little guy and someone gives you a shotgun that fires 3 BBs at the same time, you are probably going to have a pretty hard time pulling back the bit on the front of a shotgun to make it fire. Or if someone gives you a sniper rifle, you are probably going to have a little bit of a harder time pulling back the bolt and putting it back forward for you to fire. And another pro about spring-based guns. They will almost always function in any weather condition. So, if it's 100 degrees, it'll still have the same feet per second, which I already covered in the last video. And then next day, for whatever reason, it's -2. It'll still perform almost exactly the same. So, moving on to AUGs. Excuse me. Pros about AUGs. They can be fully automatic. Most of the time, there's plenty of parts for them because they're the most common kind. And they will work in just about any weather condition. Unless the internals are okay at best, then you will see problems when it's -2, -3. If it has good internals, like the gearing and the piston and all that is still very good, you'll be set. Cons about AUGs. Trigger responses are generally not as quick as they would be on a spring gun or a gas gun or HPA gun, because it takes time from when you pull the trigger to the gun actually firing. So there is that problem but that's generally a problem with all AUGs out of boxes. But don't let it discourage you. Trigger response is still very quick, just not as quick as the rest of them. And another con about AUGs is they are a little bit more expensive than springers. For example, a tri-shot shotgun, 3-shot shotgun that fires 3 at the same time. That'll generally run you about $50 for a decent one. A AUG, the cheapest one I've seen is about $100, but if you want to make sure you get real good quality, it'll run you about $150 from G&G and their Raider series, which is what I have. Very good. Don't regret the purchase at all. But anyway, moving on. And one last con about AUGs. When you charge batteries, make sure you have a smart charger. And on top of that, make sure it's a smart charger that works with that battery type. And what Spark Charger does, it'll charge up the battery just like a regular charger, but it'll stop charging the battery once the battery hits full. Because if a LiPo battery, which is a very, very strong battery, if that gets overcharged, it'll essentially explode. Freaking the acid from inside the battery will leak out and start popping, and in some cases it'll even catch fire. Nickel metal hydrate batteries, if they get overcharged, the battery cells just die. You'll get less performance. Battery won't last nearly as long or anything like that. So, but anyway, going on to the next thing, gas guns. Pros about them: super fun to shoot, because only just now electric guns are getting recoil. Gas guns have been having recoil for the longest time, most of them at least. So when you fire, the gun actually kicks back. It's a lot of fun. It's not significant, but it's still quite nice. Gas guns, instantaneous trigger response, are almost instantaneous. It's very good. And gas guns are more realistic. The cons about gas guns, well, this one can be a pro or con. You actually have to clean it, which feels very cool when you know how to clean it, but you gotta clean it either every time you go out, or just about every time you go out, depending on where you play. If you play it at an indoor field, you could possibly get away with every other time, but if you play outdoors and there's a lot of sand and mud and that kind of thing, you want to clean it every time. But anyway, so ease of maintenance, yeah, that's either or depending on the person. Another problem with gas guns is the gun itself can actually be kind of cheap. They can be as much as the G&G Raider electric version. They have a gas version of it that you can get. The problem with it is magazines are super expensive. Why, for an AEG you can get a magazine for somewhere between 10 and 25 bucks. Gas gun magazines can run you anywhere between 25 and 50 bucks. So, yeah. And another con about gas guns, which can also be a pro, is magazine capacity. How many BBs can fit in one magazine are almost always lower than what it is on a AEG. That reminds me, so if you have to cover mid caps, I'll finish up with the two real quick, and I'll cover high caps versus mid caps versus standard caps. Anyway, so having that limited amount of BBs, it's very cool, because you gotta reload in the middle of battle, and it's more military simulation, milsim, see connection, and that kind of thing. But the cons is you gotta buy a lot of magazines if you want to stay competitive for a while, and you gotta buy gas, which some areas is easier than others. And now moving on to HPA, which I will cover high caps versus mid caps versus standard caps. HPA guns, pros about them: super reliable. It's not even funny. You practically never have to open up the thing to clean it. The only thing you ever have to clean on a gas gun is the barrel, and make sure the gun itself isn't drenched in mud, and it'll keep working. And so yeah. But cons is generally HPA guns are somewhat penalized because of how reliable they are, and how you can instantaneously just change the rate of fire from 20 BBs a second up to, in some cases, up to 60 BBs a second, which, think about it. Hold the trigger down for 1 second, that's 60 coming out of the gun. But anyway, they generally do get penalize just for the sake of making it fair for everyone. Oh yeah, another pro, they do use AEG magazines. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, another con is the initial cost of purchase. Although you might never have to buy anything for it ever again after the initial purchase, which can lead up to about $1,000, because the gun itself generally runs for about $500. Anyway, the initial cost, ridiculous, and just trying to refill the tank, the HPA tank, can be a little bit of a pain unless the field you go to is a paintball field as well, so they have, you know, the air refill tanks. Or if you're lucky, some hardware stores do have the right equipment to fill up air tanks again. So, but while on the topic of HPA guns and also having AEG mags in there, High Cap magazine is a magazine of which there is a chamber which you load the BBs in, you close the chamber, you either wind a wheel that's on the bottom, or in the new flashbangs there's a string that you pull 1, 2, 3 times, and you can have a magazine that carries anywhere between 250 rounds all the way up to 500-600 in some cases, which high cap magazines are not allowed in Milsim games. Then you have mid-cap magazines, which, oh yeah, a quick con about high caps, they make a lot of rattling because BBs are just freely moving about. Mid-cap magazines, they are limited on the amount of BBs they can carry, so it can be anywhere between 79 rounds all the way up to 120 on average. You got a few that can go a little bit higher than that. Pros and cons about it. Pros, you look cool as hell when you gotta reload. And if you want to be stealthy, that's the way to go, because you won't hear, you know, shake, 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 shake every time you move. Cons about it. Reloading them is not as easy as it is on high cap, because you got to get a speed loader and load the BBs into the magazine, which will take you a few minutes, unless you have the new Elite Force speed loader, which can load a 120 round magazine in 3 seconds or less. But anyway, that's really the only con really when it comes to magazines. And then you have standard capacity magazines, which are not as common. Standard capacity magazines, the thing about those is they replicate what the gun's magazine in reality would carry. So if it's an M4 M16 variant, that magazine is only going to carry 30-35 rounds. The reason why the 35 rounds is because not every BB gets fed up into the chamber unless there's a little tongue that sticks out from the magazine once it's empty. But anyway, I'm blanking here. Pros and cons about it. Pros, same reasoning as the mid caps. Cons, same cons, but you have far less rounds. Far less rounds. It's not even funny. So, but yeah. So honestly, I would say, just for the sake of you, the player, go with either a spring sniper rifle, a spring shotgun, or go with an electric gun, which honestly I prefer the electric gun more. Just, that's my personal reference. So you go ahead and make your choices. Do as you wish. Just remember, spring guns cheapest, then AEGs, then gas guns, then HPA. Going in through the list of just general purchase at the beginning. So, this is Caboose, signing off.